G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now I have two new toys here. Yes, these are cordless airbrushes. Yep, they work without anything plugged into them. Well, they should work. We'll talk about that later. I had a bit of an accident with the black one, but essentially that's a compressor and that's an airbrush and that's all you need. Now this one costs 5 shekels and this one costs 10 shekels. This one's from China, this one's from the United States, although the compressor itself is Chinese made. So, is this one twice as good as that one? Are they any good at all, or are they just a silly fad and a waste of money? That is what we're going to tug at in this episode of the Uncorded Gooch. Roll music. So what do you get for your hard-earned shekels? Well, these are the two boxes that arrived. And I must say, this one was nicely packed in a large box of little beans and things. And it came with a lovely card from Wendy saying, let me know if you think you did a good job. You did, Wendy. You did an excellent job. It was brilliantly packed. It was lovely. So I will go and give you a rating. That's fine. This one came all the way from China. Now, it came fairly quickly. And despite all the problems we're having with China at the moment, it arrived, it was fine, there was no real issues. And I think it was like the usual free postage. Well, they've obviously built the postage and the price. Now this was 5 shekels, shekel conversion chart. Alright, so give you an idea. You can pay a little bit more, up to 70. I don't know if there's much cheaper, you might get it down to $40. Don't know, that's in my money, so 4 shekels to 7 shekels, I pay 5. Alright, now, you open up the box, it's quite a big box, there's lots of styrofoam and everything is nicely packed inside. But it's kind of cheap, it's a cheapy box, everything's cheap. Alright. Your compressor, well when you buy it, when you first get it, it has a battery in it. But my battery, after half an hour of continuous testing, burnt out. Now, probably not the best thing because when you turn this on, you push a button here and it turns on. And then I left it to sit. You don't even need the airbrush on there. So actually I had the airbrush on blowing air because I wanted to see how long the battery would last. That's not a good thing to do. If you get one of these, don't do that because it heats up to the point where I couldn't touch it and then the battery cooked and it didn't work. Well, I got another 15 minutes out of it till the battery died and then that's it. I'm yet to find a replacement for this battery and that might be possible. And I've also got to resolder back in the wires because by the time we opened it up and I had a look, the whole thing was so flimsily made, cheaply made, it all just disintegrated. So if you took care of yours, it might last. You get a USB lead, which then plugs into this compressor, and that will charge it up. And it'll go blue when it's done. It's red. The blue and the red is actually on the USB end. There's a little light built in there, a little LED. When it's red, it's charging. When it's blue, it's all charged up. If, like now, I just plug that in, have to run it literally off the USB supply all the time, it's blue all the time. So you get that. They give you a few little tools. You get a little spanner here for taking off the tip, and you get a little eyedropper. Isn't that nice? It's lovely. And then in here, you get the airbrush. Now, this is a cheap Chinese airbrush. That's all I can say. It's okay, but it's cheap. You'll see now when I basically go through and do all the tests. But let's break it down so you can see what you've got. Plastic cup, plastic lid, not very good feel to it. Cup itself is plastic, so that is plastic going into, that's metal, that part's metal. There's a few things that are metal, these attachments, silver bits, they're metal. You do have an adjuster here, so you can lock basically how far back. It does supposedly have dual action, but in reality, as you'll see when you see the video, it really only has one action, on or off. That's it. Pretty standard sort of pull apart, although it's a bit fiddlier up this end. You've got the hood, you then got a cover for the tip, which you've got to pull off. You really should take the needle out, Harriet. We do that. Needle comes out. Then you've got the tip, and you've got a tip cover here. which pulls everything out, and then you basically remove your tip, that little spanner. Now you will be doing that, and even now I don't think I've cleaned that enough. You will be doing that a lot. This airbrush requires a lot of cleaning. It gunks up, and it does take a while to clean. I'd say there's at least a good 10-15 minutes in strip down and clean for this one. But that's what you get for your shackles, you know. It's cheap. Now Bernard, there'll be some photos here, he managed to make an adapter for his, and then he could place one of these. Actually that way. And then he could click on any airbrush he liked. And then he was running some of his much better Badger airbrushes out of it. Now this airbrush that I received from Spray Gunner in the USA, interestingly it says Noname, brand by Spray Gunner. Alright, you don't want to give it a name. So there you go. It's a Noname airbrush. It comes in this much smaller box. Great quality feel to it. Beautifully wrapped. It comes with instructions. The Chinese one doesn't do that. So you get instructions letting you know what's going on, how to do it, and if you get the compressor wet, tough, warranty's void. Yes, don't wet your compressor. So everything's there. Now interesting, you get a whole lot of details here. You get told what the pressure is. You also get an origin place. It says it's made in Ningbo, Zhejiang, right? I probably said that wrong. So that's Chinese, but I think it's mainly for the compressor because the well, the airbrush looks the same, but it has their name on it. It has basically the name of, you see that? startairbrush.com. Although they might have just got that embossed, who knows. Whether they made the airbrush or not, I don't know. This could again be a totally Chinese product, who knows, but I got it out of the States. It's the only place that I found it. You have a email address here for support. Don't bother, that website does not exist. I tried. So who knows how this all came together. But the thing is, you can buy it from Spray Gunner in the US. Now the brush comes with a lovely little tip cover, quality, good weight to it. This is about the feel and the quality of, say, an Iwata Neo. I'd hesitate to say any more than that, but it feels like a good, cheap airbrush, you know, or reasonably priced. Okay, so nothing wrong with this. It has a good feel to it. It sits nice in your hand. It's nicely weighted, nicely balanced. Completely different feeling and a completely different experience to the cheap Chinese one. The Chinese one won't instill you in confidence. It's just a cheapy little plastic airbrush. You know, this straight away has got some weight. It's got some gravitas, some feeling. You've got a metal cup into a metal thing. The seals are better. It just feels better all round. And that's coupled with the compressor, which was actually wrapped in a sort of a cellophane, which was a lovely feel to it. You felt like you were getting a quality product. So the compressor, and this compressor only works when the airbrush is going. So when you get it pushed down there, it goes pink at the bottom and the airbrush comes off. When you let go, it'll switch itself off, which stops any chance of you leaving it running and overheating. And even though I used this for quite some time today, it just got warm. It got warm, it never got hot. And it ran beautifully. And I still am on full charge. Oh no, first hint of one LED down. Well, there you go. I've been using this a lot today, as you will see now in the testing, which I did earlier. Inside the box, well, this is a bit sort of flimsy, this bit, but it's fine, it works. You get the USB lead. A better quality one. This is more like an Apple USB lead. You know, that kind of quality that theirs have, that kind of feel, as you feel you're getting a better product. And it's also, it's purple. Don't know if you can see that. It's purple. So yeah, it's all purple. So, you know, you're getting a distinctly different quality and level of product. At least that is the feeling and the expectation. Now, the breakdown of the airbrush, it's a bit easier to pull apart than the other one. You have got adjuster here, so you can set how far back the travel is on your paint. Right? It is a proper dual action, that it will go down and it will switch on. Right? So you can control, but not so much the pressure, but I've got a way around that I'll show you later. But you have a really good feel on the pullback. The spring is good. You can really adjust how much paint you're putting in, and you'll see the effects that I got with this later on. Cup, as we have to assemble out a thing, is metal on metal. It's very good, although mine did come with a scratch inside. When I was cleaning it, you probably won't see it, there's a nick and a scratch in there. So naughty spray gunner, you give me a defective cup. But it doesn't stop it from working. You've got a hood that comes off easy. Everything's metal on metal. We'll take the needle out, Harry. Needle comes out. Nice feel to that. I mean, it just feels better. You have the cover here for the tip, and that's it. You don't get a little tool in this one to take your tip off. So I don't know if it's compatible with the iWater tools or it's compatible with that cheapy airbrush tool. But yeah, it's amazing we didn't get a little tool in there. So that's quite a surprise, unless it's fallen out or I haven't found it yet. But I'd hazard that really a little cheap little spanner tool at the correct gauge to take off your tip is pretty well essential. So that's a bit points off. But apart from that, it's all good. It really is a much nicer feeling airbrush than the other one. So this is the black Chinese one, and I've already used it. It's not bad actually. My only problem is I have to run it on power because my battery is cactus. And that's because I let it run, because you can switch this thing on. You can hear it's very, very quiet. I airbrushed a whole lot of stuff yesterday. I had YouTube running in the background. I could hear everything clearly, even over the drone and the air conditioner. So it's not a noisy thing. It makes less noise than an electric shaver. Now the weight is nothing really. It's air, right? It's just compressed air. So when you're working with it, you think, oh, this thing's going to be really heavy on scaling. Actually, it's less intrusive than the hose that you'd have normally going out your airbrush, which does provide a bit of drag and sort of pulls back on you. So really, relatively, it's not that big a deal. There's exactly the same amount of RSI, if you like, or impedance to your work. Now, feel of this is pretty tacky. It's your bottom garden variety basic airbrush. Now, if you've managed to do what Bernard's done, he's managed to add an adapter to this, and then he's put a decent airbrush on, and then he managed to paint an entire 1/48 scale aircraft, medium size one, in two colours, like the underside and the top. He did all that in about half an hour or so while we're sitting at a barbecue, and he used one of these. You couldn't even hear him do it, really. It's only when you went over there, went, oh, you're airbrushing. So he found it quite useful, but he wasn't using this particular airbrush. But my review will be just of the airbrush as supplied. Later on, I'll look at putting the adapter on, changing airbrushes, seeing what happens. Now, for the first test, I've just put some water in there, and we'll get it going. Now, already the air is coming out. This is the thing with this one, it's not really a dual action airbrush. Once you push that on, you've got whatever pressure is there. I've obviously got the full pressure because basically I'm just running off mains, there's no battery. So that's full charge. And that's pretty well what it was, the same amount of oomph when I used this the first time. So this is the annoying part, you've got to find that button. Button on, it's just doing air. Push down here. As you can see, we've got the size of the spray. Now admittedly this is full go, right? This is how she is, full gutser. You have a little bit of control, and that's it. But basically you don't have the ability to press down. Pressing down on that does nothing. It's useless. Okay, so it's only a single action airbrush, really. All right, we need to test it then with some paint. Now I've already been painting with it, and I even put life colour in it, which would be the worst test because my life colour paints here have degraded to the point where they have snot in them. And yet it managed to spray life colour metallic. I've got some aluminium there that I just ran through to see what would happen, and it painted it. So we're going to use some Hitaka, which is a better quality paint. At least it's a better quality paint because it hasn't totally gone cactus. Now, Bernard mixed his properly to consistency of milk. I've just primed the airbrush with a bit of Hitaka thinner, which is how I usually paint when I'm using Hitaka with my clips, right? And then usually I just put in, because this is supposed to be airbrush ready, I just put a couple of drops in there. The priming should already blow through and clear anything that's in there, like the water. Right, so it's just water at the moment. Oh, sorry, it's just air at the moment. Oh no, look, it's actually bleeding. That's it, I'm not even using the thing yet. All right, let's try our mule here. See how we go. So, well, it's an airbrush. Maybe I haven't primed this model, so I've put 2 coats of Hataka on there, which is pretty well neat, but that is the red series. It's supposed to be already basically at the level you can airbrush. At least that's what they say. Although, as Bert and I know, we always add a tiny bit of thinner. But look, that's okay. It's not a brilliant paint job, but I think that comes down to the airbrush itself, which is pretty ordinary. It's just, you know, any cheap Chinese airbrush, that's exactly the same look you're going to get. But if my batteries were working on this, I've got portability. I mean, I've got quiet. Well, I've still got quiet, even powering it in like I've done. It's very quiet. So it achieves what it sets out to do. It's portable, it's quiet, and it's easily usable. So there you go. So far, that's okay, and that does the job. If I had an adapter on there and a really good airbrush, well, then we might have a really good result. Let's test for just a bit of fine work if it's possible. Well, again, it's the airbrush that's caused the problem. I've got tons of basically pressure. So I'd say, and going by what Bernard did, you've got a good half an hour or so of airbrushing time, which is not bad for any session, really. Half-hour session, and that's not continuously, that's half an hour of airbrushing. So you could spend an hour in the hobby room doing some painting, and this would probably still be going at the end of it. And then it's a simple matter, if you do need to do a little bit more, of hooking in the 240 volt, right? And you could just finish that last bit with the lead in, which, as you saw, is not that hard. It's no different than having an airbrush with a hose coming out of it. So, yeah, does it fill its criteria? Yeah, I think it does. I think it's actually quite useful. All right, we've spent twice as much money and we have bought this one, which is the Start Airbrush with the, again, another Chinese compressor, as we found out. But the quality on this is better. At least out of the box, this feels Rolls-Royce compared to that POS Ford of the other one. All right. So, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, that other one's pretty pedestrian, the black one. And it's, you know, what you'd expect if you bought a cheap compressor and a cheap airbrush, which here would probably set you back about 12 shekels, all right? And you would get a big thump, 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 thump on the floor, decent compressor with an expansion tank, you know, and then they throw in a cheap Chinese airbrush like that. That's 12 shekels. But I bought the portable cordless one for 5 shekels, so less than half. Now this is about 10 shekels. It's still cheaper than buying a Chinese compressor, reasonable one, with a cheap shitty airbrush. So do we get more bang for our bucks spending the 10 shekels and getting the Start airbrush and this rather snappy looking thing? Now, it came fully charged. Underneath, you can see. That's how it was when it arrived at my doorstep. All the little lights are up. Now, I have used it and I have recharged it, and I'd say we're going to get at least half an hour or more going by the other one. But let's see. Now, notice there's no button to push on this one. There's nothing. You just have the compressor and then you have your airbrush. Now, your airbrush, in this case, is dual. You've got pullback for paint, right? But you've also got push down for air. And when you do, the compressor starts automatically, which is great. So you haven't got all that fiddliness with the other one of having to go around and switch it off and switch it on and the bloody thing blowing air all the time and annoying you, okay? Now, let's have a look at its blow. And you see the spray, it's really big. It's a really big The only way I'm going to be able to show you this is with some paint. So, but believe me, I'm getting tons of pressure out of this. How the pressure will be as the battery dies, well, logically, as you've got less battery, the motor's not going to work as much, and it probably might not be able to get the pressure up. Don't know. I mean, the pressure theoretically is in the cylinder, so the motor just has to pressurise that cylinder, and the cylinder should give you a pretty well a constant pressure. It's only when the motor finally gives out, you'll use up the last pressure in your cylinder. That's the science. So it shouldn't matter, half battery or full battery, your pressure should, in theory, be the same if it's a good quality product. All right, let's put some paint in this and we'll see how it compares. You are getting no paint coming out just with air. Pullback, we're getting paint straight away. You do not need much pullback. Oh, heaven on a stick. That's more like airbrushing. Yeah, that's the difference. Same paint, same model, different airbrush. This is a really nice airbrush. You really have to learn when you're using this one. You can't just sort of pull and go because you haven't got pressure. There's no, now when you've got an airbrush that's connected to a hose, you've got pressure, so you can sort of pull and slam down as you go. You've got to get into good airbrushing practice that you have to push down, get some air, and then add your paint. Okay? I don't know if you can see the paint stream now. So that was the paint that we got from the black airbrush, right? And that is the paint job. Now, I don't know if you're seeing it. I've already put a nasty scratch on there. That's my finger. That is smooth and beautiful. That is good enough. That'd be as good as I get from my Neo or even from my Eclipse. All right, hope you can hear me over the sound of the spray booth, but I really need that extractor on. I'm getting gassed here. Now, this is the cheap black Chinese one on a more powerful compressor. So, we get the same really nice spray. Can I control it? I'm getting a splatter there, I think that's me. You really can't. The thing is, you've got everything or nothing. You don't have a control, and that could be this airbrush, but then again I have the same problem with the other one. It's either on or it's off. As soon as you tap and it releases the air is pretty ferocious. But notice the splattering you get with this one. I'm going to swap over back to the white one in exactly the same conditions, and we'll just see what it is, and then we'll see, comparing, you know, apples with apples, so to speak. This is certainly much nicer to use. It's a little more weighty than that other one, but I'm not tethered, and it's easy to use, and the airbrush itself just feels better. Let's see now. Right, it's much happier, and okay, a bit of control, and I've got much fine lines. There's your difference. That's your cheap Chinese one. Splatters a lot, not much control. This one, good filling, and then you can go right down and you can get a fine line. Now my final test, good airbrush, cheaper compressor, right, to see what's in it. Now I'm going to have to plug it in, so it's not a definitive test because I couldn't run this off the battery. But from memory, when the battery was charged, as I said, it was about the kind of push, and it had the same sort of feel as we're getting pretty well with full power. So on, okay, it's already humming. It's quieter, this one, I must say. It is quieter. Let's see what we got. You definitely haven't got the push that you have in the white one. Spray gunner. These guys seem to know what they're on about. A number of people, when I've said spray gunner, they've gone, you'll have no problem. Their airbrushes are fantastic. So that's interesting, isn't it? So there you go. And I must say, it came fairly quickly. It was ordered over Christmas, and yet it arrived pretty well after New Year, which, you know, is pretty good normally. But, yeah. Maybe I could show you. That's good enough to do detail work. And then give it a bit of adjustment. Oh, there's not much paint left. So actually that's the trick. If you're doing detail work, you want virtually no paint in your brush. It works really well. So look at that. Now, after using this one for a while, it's got a nice feel. It really does. It's also very easy to strip down and clean. I would clean this one and be ready to go again twice as fast as I would clean this one. And that's just a matter of quality. If you've got a cheapy little airbrush, yeah, you're going to have problems, you know. It's never going to be as good as a better quality airbrush. And this is, to all intents and purposes, this is certainly twice, if not more, betterer than that one. So, which one would you buy? Well, which one would I buy? Well, I bought both. But I tell you what, this one shines. Not only because it is shiny. Look, that's just so much better quality. It is mainly metal. There's only a few sort of plastic anodized sort of parts. But basically, most of this is metal. It has good feel to it. Much more control. It is a dual action, especially when coupled with their proprietary compressor. This thing's still going. I've been messing around here for over an hour, and I've got that. Admittedly, probably haven't been continuously airbrushing, but I've had a session where I've been doing stuff, so I haven't even yet put a dent in the battery. I'll have to do long-term tests to eventually let you know how long this runs. But as I've said, the cheapy one ran at least 45 minutes, I'd say you get out of it. Just carefully don't let it overheat. So you could easily probably get a good hour session out of this one before it dies on you, and then hopefully it'll just charge up again. Now, being white, it's going to get a bit grubby, but it has that Apple feel to it. I think they did that deliberately. This came wrapped in cellophane, just like Apple products do, and it reminds me of the old iMacs. It really does. So maybe I have sort of a liking of this one just for the feel. But honestly, this is a good airbrush. Now, especially with the compressor, if you have one of these and you manage to get it fit, mine won't at the moment. I need an adapter from Bernard. You'll have a quick release, which is handy, so you'll be able to snap on any of your airbrushes onto that compressor. But not only that, you get one of these valves. Now, I have that with my normal hose to airbrush connection for my Awatas. And this is terrific because you may have your pressure set at whatever you think it is, right? I've got it set at 40 psi, so I'm doing Steiner res, but then I want to quickly change airbrushes. I can dial down. I go, well, it's just a little bit too, and I can dial it down, or I can set it usually in the middle, and I can dial it up. I often do that with Steiner res, is I set it to 40 psi in the compressor, but I dial this down about midway, see how I go. That way I know I can go up if my paint is starting to coagulate in the airbrush. I need a bit more blow, or I can go down a little bit if I really have too much pressure. So one of these may make this infinitely better, that you'll have control over your pressure there. I mean, you want to go and put one with a pressure gauge on there, great, but then it's really going to get quite gangly. I mean, as it is, it's not too bad like this. I watched Bernard use his Chinese one, and he had his adapter in there. So he would have been working a bit higher, but only up there. But it's doable. This little compressor is fantastic. This will be my workhorse for a while. I'll have to see what it can't do. Who knows? I'm going to try Steiner res through it. That's always a killer. That kills most airbrushes. We'll see. I'll do more tests, and there'll probably be a part 2 when I eventually figure out how long does the battery last this thing. But honestly, are they worth the money? If you're tight on budget, there's nothing wrong with this. There are different ones at different prices, so I don't know, find someone who's bought one and they like it and buy that exact same one. because the one that I got I don't think is exactly the same as Bernard's. It doesn't have the same connector here. There were subtle differences. So maybe he got a much better airbrush than I did, and he didn't pay much more. So you'll have to shop around and see what you can find quality versus price. But expect to pay around that 50 shekel mark. 50? No, that's too much. 5 shekel mark. 5 shekels, yes. So that would get you going, and then if you spend the money on an adapter and get that working, you can click on other better airbrushes as you go. But still, this compressor, it's alright, but it's nowhere near as good as this one. I'm going to let Bernard have a go at this compressor at our club meeting and whack his airbrush on and his adapter and see how it goes. You'll probably go, oh wow, because honestly, you're only talking 10 shekels. It's still not a lot of money. You can hardly buy a decent airbrush for 10 shekels. You really can't. Okay, it's going to be double that. It's at least 20 shekels for a reasonable airbrush, 30 or 40 if you want a super duper one. This will prime, it will paint, it will detail. I even got fine lines out of it. I had to adjust my paint mixture, but that happens with every airbrush. I'm only using this for the first time. It takes a while to get to know your thinner paint ratio, how the airbrush reacts, and exactly how much trigger to put on. Those are all learnings that you do anyway. I've had to do this on the run while doing the video. I'm happy with the results. I feel I could paint just about anything with this airbrush and this compressor. I can't wait until I get the adapter from Bernard and I can put my iWaters on and see how they perform. I may never use my big noisy compressor again. You never know. We'll see. Part 2 will be the telling. After I've road tested these for a couple of months and really had a good feel of them, I'll come back and let you know. So if you want to wait till then and say, see if I've changed my mind, probably a good idea. If you've got 5 shekels and you just want to blow it, grab one of these. Have a play with it. See what you think. Don't have any expectations that this plastic airbrush is going to be any good. It's okay. It's good for a first airbrush, but it's cheap and nasty. And the compressor, well, yours might be better than mine, especially if your battery works. So that's about all I can say. Now, if you want to comment on this, sure, no problems. Give me some comments. Let me know if you've got one of these. Just be respectful and nice about it. Please like, subscribe, and if you really enjoy what's on my channel, why don't you hook over to Patreon, where I've got a page. There'll be a link and a clicky thing here somewhere. Because if you're a Patreon supporter, you get this video a day early and no adverts. Plus you get to chat with me, and there's a whole lot of things we do behind the scenes that the great unwashed out here, yes, you lot, you don't get to see. If you don't care, well, just keep watching my videos. I still get monetized by YouTube, and they have increased my monetization a lot since I started Patreon. Isn't that interesting? Oh, well, there you go. All right. That is my review on these cordless airbrushes, as best as I could do, because that one sort of still had to have a cord of such. I will do the follow-up in a couple of months' time, and we'll see how they're travelling. All right, that's it. It's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Denny.